This is Roxanne Johnson, Life After the Impact. My son's name is Jamal Bird. He was killed by DC Metropolitan Police on October 1st, 2019. I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Latoya. How you doing this evening,
What's
Latoya?
up, you guys? What's up, you guys? My name is Latoya Benton. I'm the mother of Xavier Hill. Xavier was killed January 9th, 2021 by two Virginia State troopers, Seth Layton and Benjamin Bone. As you guys know on our podcast, we are always about that action. Roxanne, you want to kind of segue us into, well, y'all, you saw the podcast last week already, how we're talking about systemic racism and what's going on within our system. August is Black Philanthropy
August,
Month, right?
Black
Right.
August.
Black August.
I encourage you to go look it up, but it started in 1979. It was instituted by some brothers who were incarcerated, and they did that to um, highlight the injustices of those in the incarceral system. Since then, it has been used to talk about the revolutionary work. And when I say revolutionary, I mean people who put their very lives on the line
Hmm.
to further the cause of freedom for everybody. Even though these were people of black or African descent, the work that they did affected everybody. They were part of George Jackson and his brother Jonathan, and they were part of what we know as the Black Panther Party. And some
Hmm.
of their work still is important today. Some of the things that they put in place, like free lunch programs,
Yes.
food clinics.
Yes.
The Rainbow Coalition came out of with Fred
Hmm.
Hampton, who was a Black Panther. So we want to take this month to memorialize them, but also to remember what they stood for. And this
Right.
is a great a time to study. If we talk
Hmm.
about a lot, educate yourself, maybe doing some fasting and training our bodies and training our minds so that we can
Right.
continue this fight
And I'm gonna
for
say, as I say, the last one you said to continue to fight, right? Because granted, we're gonna
continue to fight. It
memorialize
ain't
them,
over.
but we want to memorialize them. But we want to take the information they had to keep moving the fight
Yeah,
forward.
it ain't over.
Now, Roxanne, with that being said, you want to go ahead and do it. Well, have our guest introduce himself. He's kind of
Oh,
quiet over
sure.
there.
Yeah.
Yes,
Uh,
hi. My name is Charles Elliott. I'm a father of four kids. I'm a husband of 21 years. That's what I identify with most. Everything else is minimal. I mean, I have a master's degree in social work. I'm a licensed clinical social worker in DC and in Maryland. I teach at Morgan State University. I just entered a PhD program where I'll be studying, social work. And I work with people who have been just as impacted, those who've been incarcerated, you know, i.e., those who've been incarcerated. And, I volunteer for what we call a 1530 life group, where we have people who have been incarcerated for at least 15 years.
Mm.
As a part of this group, they come and kind of love on each other, connect with each other, share resources, and I'm there to facilitate that group once a month. I work with two reentry organizations that provide mental health services to people who are transitioning back into the community. And I've done a host of other things, but I think that kind of sums it up for me.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. All right, well, I guess we're going to go and segue into this conversation right here, Charles. As you said earlier about returning citizens. So, if you guys watched the podcast last week, we're also talking about injustices within the system. Charles, you want to kind of give a definition for people in the back? When we say returning citizens, what does that mean?
Yeah. So returning citizens. So that is a term that's been used to it's more of a pleasant term, a pleasant term that's used for people who have been in prison before. So returning meaning coming back to the community, trying to reintegrate. So these are people who have been previously incarcerated, also known as those who are just as impacted And sometimes, if they are a part of programs, they're considered participants. So that's pretty much what returning citizens are.
And so systemically, what do you see are the challenges of people who are now returning citizens or who have been justice impacted? What do you see as the biggest challenges for them?
Yeah, so I think anytime we talk about any topic, I think is good to talk about the numbers. Um, Systemically, African Americans or Black, as they are characterized in the census statistics, are overrepresented in the criminal justice system. So so African Americans make up 14% of the general population, but they are 42% of the prison population nationally. So that is an issue. Why are so many Black people being incarcerated compared to their general numbers and the general population? So I mean that's the issue. And when they come home, what do they need? And I think we were talking before we started recording that people come home and they're not treated as full class citizens. So they come home with the need of, they need family support or community support. I mean, that is a huge need, because if you come back out, and especially if you've been in for, 15 years, 30 years or more, the landscape looks much different, in our community, especially in the DMV area. So understanding the landscape, you know, having support, needing jobs, and sometimes people come out depending upon the type of charge they have. I mean, they can't. It's hard for them to get a job. So that's a need. Training, but most times people who've been there for a while, they do engage in some type of training or some type of education while they're in, if they've been there for a long time, depending upon where they are, and depending upon where they are in the country, and depending upon where the headspace is. What else do they need? They need vital records. So if you've been there for a while, you come back out, oh, I don't have my social security card. In order to get a government issue ID, you need certain documents. So you need help with getting, vital records. And there are a host of other things. Job, housing. That's the biggest issue, housing. So as well, I don't know if some of our listeners know, but in 2020, halfway homes were taken out of Washington, D.C. And what these halfway homes are is like you are released from prison.
Transition house.
Yeah, the transition house. So you're halfway in, halfway out. So you're still supervised, but you are not incarcerated in an institution, but you are in in your community.
Right.
And those have been taken away. So where do they go when they transition? To Baltimore or to Virginia? And it creates a transportation barrier, and for them to get connected to their family. So those are some of the issues that people face when they come out.
And I'm going to mention what we said too earlier in the podcast, but I'm going to just dive right into it. One of the, I would say, issues too is the right to vote and their rights. Because like you just mentioned earlier, if you don't have an ID, you can't vote. You can't vote. And if you don't have the way to get DMV, you can't get an ID.
Yeah. And so I know in DC, I don't know that if you have been committed of a felony, I don't think you can vote in DC.
At all?
At all.
Wow.
At least I'm almost sure of that. I mean, that's something we can fact check. But in Maryland, I know you can. If you have been committed of a felony in Maryland, you can vote. So it does impact. It depends upon the jurisdiction, depending upon where you are. But it's still the fact remains that you're a second class citizen when you come out. If you have to figure out whether that's the case for you.
Yeah.
Charles, what's the importance though you would say with I mean I know the importance of, but I want to explain to the audience when it comes to returning citizens not having those rights or being able to participate in voting, how does that affect our system overall?
Yeah, I mean, so as I mentioned before, we look at the numbers. When people come out and they cannot get work, they can't vote. I mean, what do? They revert back to things that they know that
Mm-hmm.
will help them to eat
The same, yeah,
and,
yeah.
and sustain and survive.
Mm-hmm.
So, what happens, people are either, they go back to prison, and, that's a strain on, the state or the city, because they have to pay for each individual who's incarcerated. So, financially, there's an impact. Um, but yeah,
Okay, and
Mhm.
I would say too. Now, would you agree to say that it's to a certain extent it's designed like that?
absolutely. I
Right.
think I think it's systemic. I think going back to your initial question,
Mm-hmm.
it is systemic, and why? And I mean, there are a lot of theories around that, but I mean, the idea, and I think about the major systemic issue of this country, which was slavery.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why would you enslave another person? I mean, that is just a question for us to ponder. Why would you enslave another person? Um, from a psychological standpoint, there's something going on with inside of you that you need to degrade someone else to feel inferior
Mm-hmm.
or superior. Sorry, to make
Mm-hmm.
someone else, inferior.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just, I think it's just the leftover, the residuals of slavery, really.
Right, right.
Um, yep,
Yeah, and when you talk about the 13th Amendment, which tells you that, that you are free except when you commit a crime and are
Mm-hmm.
incarcerated, then you can be
Mm-hmm.
treated like an enslaved individual.
Mm-hmm.
So that needs to be rectified as well. It needs to be put out of the. I mean, that needs to be unconstitutional. If
yeah,
we say that enslavement is unconstitutional, then it needs to be enslavement in all cases that
that's
are
right.
institutional. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to that point, Roxanne, people who are incarcerated and who have a job in prison, I mean, they're getting paid 33 cents,
Right. Right.
cents, 25
Right.
cents an hour, and
Yep.
it's justified because you're getting paid something. But that
Mhm.
that, that is
I
servitude.
mean, shit.
It's not.
So true.
I mean,
It,
shit.
it is servitude, and I mean, and if it's law, if it's constitutional, and I know we were talking about something else, and I'm kind of jumping to another topic about, excuse me, different states. Uh,
Mhm.
so, for example, in Florida, the people said, "Hey, we want to allow people who return to the community from prison to vote." The governor said something different. And said, "No, we don't want to allow that. That's a constitutional issue." I mean,
Right.
Mhm.
you can have, you get, a lawyer to fight that, but it's something that we need to stand up for. We need to say, hey, this is an issue. Let's get our legal team together, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's pro bono organizations that could, help with fighting things like that, and and address it.
Now, did I hear somebody say? I might have heard this wrong. Did I hear one of you guys say earlier that in one of these states, that people get to vote if the returning citizens can get their rights back? Did I hear that right?
Yeah. So in Maryland. And I don't want to provide any misinformation, but I do know someone who committed a felony, spent time in prison, who is in the community now and can vote.
Mhm.
But I do know someone who lives in the District of Columbia who has a felony, spent time in prison, and cannot vote.
Based upon what though? How? because again, I just like you said, that's constitutional because another person shouldn't be able to tell me if I can vote or not. If my own rights are my own rights.
That's right.
It shouldn't be based upon if you think I can vote or not. Who are you think will I can vote or not? And then, like I said earlier, if I already did the crime, I've already paid my time in prison. Why am I getting out and I'm still being ridiculed by almost like the scarlet letter thing, right? I got like a stamp on my head saying, "Oh, I can't vote" or whatever. But
Mhm.
again, that is an issue, and I feel like too, that's not just the issue of the person going to prison. That's the issue of the community because we letting it just slide like that and keep happening.
Mhm.
That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of us have been conditioned to believe that the people who are in prison belong in prison.
Belong in prison, yeah, they think that.
Yeah, they think that. And
Mhm.
I did do a fact check. In Maryland, you can vote even if you're a convicted felon, if the felon convictions are not for the crime of buying or selling votes, and you have completed your imprisonment. You can
Mm.
vote
Okay, so you
while on
can't.
probation. You can vote while on probation unless you were convicted of buying and selling votes.
Okay,
So
so
Mhm.
you
yeah, that's a yes for Maryland.
Yeah.
And I know as you were talking, I know that I participated in registering people to vote that were incarcerated in what used to be Lorton Penitentiary when I worked for Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. And so if you've been charged but you haven't received a sentence, you can still vote. And I know that because I actually registered people to vote back in the 80s. Yeah.
and like we say all the time,
So
I would say this to you guys, even as Roxanne says she knows that you guys be sure to make
be
sure
sure
it's
to
very
check it.
important. Not just only checking it, because we don't need you to check her. You need to know for your own self, right? A lot of things we're talking about right now are things that people just either don't know or they're assuming those things happen, or we assume a lot of times, oh, they did their prison bid or whatnot, they're free to go. And that's not how that works. So we Charles, how many people do you say or would you say on average I watched a documentary actually on Netflix called 13, and it was
Mhm.
about people returning from prison coming back home, but it was also about how you just said even like places like Victoria's Secrets, all these big chains and stuff will use prison labor to make these clothes and are paying these guys no money at all. And when they got in prison or whatnot, they have nowhere to go. How would you say, or what would you say is effective as far as when the community? Because again, that's on Netflix. That movie's on Netflix, so people are aware of what's going on. How would you say, or what do you think? People also say too, once you go behind that wall, people forget about you. So, what do you think has to be done in order to kind of change that conditioning mindset of? Because again, you did a crime, whatever. Because a lot of people that's in prison also shouldn't be there too. We know that too. So how did you get it to the point where the community kind of can understand like what's going on? How many documentaries do you need to look at and watch before we say, okay, hey, we're gonna do something about this?
Yeah. And that's a great question. So I think because of my training, so I view your question in terms of the person in the environment. So when you think about a person in the environment molds and shapes and kind of develops a person in the way that they would contribute to society in whatever way. And when you think about someone who, for example, let's say someone came from a household that expressed themselves in aggressive ways, and you grew up thinking that when someone yells at you, you fight them. And when you're younger, that's fine. But when you become an adult, you can get in a fight in the community and get charged with a felony. So understanding that because someone has a felony, it's like what were the circumstances? And whether it's like so some people in certain communities a fight is a fight. It's like you fight, you finish, and you go about your business.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But in other communities, like, oh, you hit me, I'm going to call the police, and
Mm-hmm.
I call the police, and here we are caught up in a legal situation.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding like the circumstances of the event and thinking about history. You think about how things have shaped you know, how things have developed over time, it's like it's not just a person's actions. It's like, to me, it's like it's historical, it's generational. So when you think about it in those terms, okay, well, that kind of frames like why people do what they do. But after, so let's say you have a child, they are punished, oh, they can't talk on the cell phone for 3 days. And after they finish their punishment, then they should be able to go along and go along about their day.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the same for people who have been in prison, because once you come out, you have the stigma associated with you.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know, Roxanne said it, or maybe you did, Latoya, but I mean, it's these stigmas, they perpetuate.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know, people don't know, like, just the history around things. So,
Mm-hmm.
understanding history, understanding the person and environment, and understanding and believing within yourself that people can make mistakes. They get punished for their mistakes, and they should have the freedom to move on. And I think it's just that simple. If everyone think about it that way. But if you have parents that are conservative, and they think about, they train their children to think, if you do something wrong, you are a bad person, and don't hang around certain people. And so if you're raised that way, then it's just going to perpetuate the thoughts that we have around people who've been incarcerated.
And I'm gonna add this on it too. Some people who are in prison, they not supposed to even actually be there for real, right? You got those, and I feel like that's almost like a double whammy for the ones who actually were almost like falsely convicted. They get out of prison and then they got to still fight to like regain their name back or to reprove certain things and they'll exonerate them. And it's like, yeah, but I done lost my whole damn life now, and I gotta still fight for certain things, whatnot, to be viewed as a regular person.
So, Toya, I'm reminded of a case, and I spoke about this a little earlier, of a female who was African American, 45 years old. She was diagnosed with bipolar, and with some cases of bipolar, people black out.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to see more of that now with the people that I work with. And so she was a security guard, and she was a security guard in a group home, an all male group home. And she had an episode. She had a bipolar episode, and she woke up in prison. Well, she came to in prison because there were several young men who had sex with her, and they taped it. Yes. And my question is, did the jury or the judge or the prosecutor know that she was diagnosed with bipolar? And if so, do they understand the conditions of bipolar? And if that's the case, why was she? I mean, and she was convicted of the crime,
Mhm.
and now her life is ruined. I mean, she tried to get. I don't know. I mean, and she is intelligent. She's a go getter, but it's hard for her to get a job. So now she relies on public assistance to help her to get by, because she cannot get a job because of her being incarcerated
All
for
right.
that for that particular crime.
And when she was a victim, though.
Exactly.
Sounds
Yeah,
like,
Exactly. Yep.
that's crazy.
okay. Sounds
Yeah.
like.
So that's wrong. I think she was wrongfully convicted. They
Yeah.
they should have been convicted.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Stuff like that, though, it's almost like how many other cases are like that, right? And we'll hear something like that again, but it's almost how, Charles, what do you think is going to be the tipping point, or what kind of how when they had the signs up, black and whites or whatnot? Somebody thought it was like, nah, we're taking this shit down, and they decided to do something about it. When it comes to returning citizens, what do you think is going to take for the community to one stop having that stigma on them that they all deserve to be there? Or you did whatever crime you did your time or whatnot. When you got in jail, that should be it. It shouldn't be. Even when they have it on the paper that you got to write down on there if you're a convicted felon or not. What does that have to do with my skill set?
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
So unfortunately, I think it's going to have to be personal. I mean, I think we can do all we can to organize, but once it hits home for people, I think it will kind of illuminate certain issues. So for someone who did that, I have so many stories. I know of a person who is highly um, successful, brilliant. When I say brilliant, they are brilliant. Female, about almost 50 years old. Her first interaction with the criminal justice system was when her teenage daughter called the police on her for taking her phone. She got incarcerated, and she's a professional woman. That's the first time that she had interaction with the criminal justice system, and she might get charged. She might get charged for it. Now there was a little tussling and a little, it was
Yeah,
some things going on, which the daughter called the police and came in, and they took her away. After two police officers, they could not really agree on some things, and they just took her away. And I was like, that is so, once it hits home, so
then
her
they realize what's going on.
exactly, exactly. Then we can start to, make some noise. And I think sometimes when there's like high profile cases, I mean, I think we can capitalize on the momentum of high profile cases, in helping to combat some of these stigmas and some of these issues.
Mhm. But the idea that the criminal justice system is a very punitive system is always, they say rehabilitation, but they are more interested in punishment, meaning,
Hmm.
and also it is always interested in commodifying the bodies that are behind those walls because capitalism, right?
Yeah.
And so, you see that our bodies have been commodified since we first had interaction with. See, these are facts. These are not, we can't like sidestep things when we talk
Hmm.
about things,
Hmm.
because in order to get to the resolution, we got to understand the
The
root.
problem.
Yeah, we got to get to the root. And
Hmm.
so we got privatization of correctional facilities
Hmm.
where people have to pay for their own toilet paper,
Hmm.
right? And their folks, their loved ones, have to pay if they want to speak to them, either on a telephone or a teleconference or what have you. And so
Yep.
it has been commodified to the point where that is another issue. Why are you making money off of people who's supposed
That's
to
in
be?
prison.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Charles, I'm gonna have a slight this you for a slight second, only because I feel like it shouldn't have to hit home. Because even like what you're saying right now, I've had friends who say stuff to me like, well, my son don't get in trouble or stuff like that. And it's like, okay, but meaning what? If you still know that this shit is going around you, that is still going on around you, how do you still let it go on around you? Like saying you got that point you just made. I'm already in prison. Now I got to set up a phone system to get to call the outside world too.
Hmm.
And if I don't have those resources to do so, what I'm supposed to do?
Yeah.
Mhm. And,
Yeah.
and and to your point, people, it shouldn't have to hit home, but we got these ICE, immigration and customization
Right,
enforcement,
Hmm.
and if you think that they only arresting or incarcerating or killing people because they think that they're from another country, you got
that's
another
not true.
coming. You got another thought coming. We
Right,
know of at least three people who were citizens of this place called United States of America who ended up dead.
right.
So it's the same kind of idea that there's a systemic situation going on, and until we address the root, it will still have these systemic uh, things going on.
And
Hmm.
Roxanne, I'm gonna say this too, you guys. Even it ain't even an idea, Roxanne. It's a real thing, right?
Hmm.
That's the real thing that's going on right now as far as systemically. Because people think all the time, they think about ICE agents, they think about immigration. It's not only with immigration, folks.
The U.S. Supreme Court said that racial profiling was not unconstitutional. So that means that somebody can come, yeah, yeah, yeah. And so that means that somebody, law enforcement, can come up to anybody, regardless of race, creed, color, and if they think that you are somebody of that a person of interest, right? They can come up to you and do what they like to do. But that's why it's important for you to know your rights
That's
and
right.
to
That's right.
shut them out. But anyway, yeah,
Because it's still that's still racial profiling at the same time. It's
yeah, it's
still the
racial
same thing.
profile. Yeah, yeah, but
And looks. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. But we live in a country right now where they have said that it's okay to do that. So imagine how many people get arrested just on that alone.
Now that's not interesting though, because I know at one point in time, they had a thing where they was talking about racial profiling, and it was like a no go for that. So
Hmm.
and again, I blame it on the community though, because when we're not following upon certain cases or whatever, or attending court cases or whatnot, they're gonna let shit just slide on through because they know we're not paying attention to certain things.
Hmm. That's right. That's
Yeah,
right. That's right.
Latoya, I think I hear you saying, look, we need to take back our power. Forget about putting it off on other people. We need to do what we need to do what's in our power to help people to wake up. So
Yeah,
I think telling these stories, I mean, to your point, I don't think it should be the way it is, but telling these stories, helping people to understand that this is not just an individualistic thing, that this is
right.
something that has happened time after time after time after time from generation to generation, and look at how it's impacting your people.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't look at your neighbor as your people, helping people to understand that we are connected, we are all interconnected. And I think help having those type of having discussions and helping people to understand how they are connected. I think will probably help with gaining traction or us
Mhm.
fighting as a group.
Mhm.
Right.
And if that doesn't uh put a burr in your hat, the fact that this incarceral system under the heading of public safety in most people's budgets, whether it's county or state budgets, take up a whole lot of the budget, which means that is spending a whole lot of your tax dollars to keep, quote unquote, the safety.
Yeah,
Well, how safe are we when the very people who claim to make us safe are the ones who's causing us the harm?
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
How safe are we really?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anything else you want to add to our conversation, Charles?
Uh, just I like to help people to understand that people who are transitioning, out of prison, they don't need pity or empathy. They need resources. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
they need moral support. Financial resources are great. They need moral support, um, mental health
Mm-hmm.
support, which is huge because I believe that anyone who has been incarcerated, I don't care if it's
Mm-hmm.
one day, it's some trauma associated with that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
getting some mental health support,
Mm-hmm.
and looking at them as human beings, as citizens. They are citizens,
Yep.
and just because someone has been incarcerated doesn't mean that
You're a bad person.
exactly.
And I'm gonna say this: I used to be a notorious person to drive without a license. You hear me? I ain't care about having nobody's license. If I had some car keys and I had a car, I'm out. Period. I don't care who catching me, right? On Virginia had a thing back in the day where they would have a three strike rule, and I wasn't aware of this. 'Cause again, I was younger, and I was like, I'm gonna get in the car and drive. On my third time getting caught, though, they were trying to give me like 6 months in jail. They want to give me 30 days in jail. I had a son. You know what I'm saying? I had a son in elementary school. They didn't care nothing about that. They was more like, oh, make arrangements for your son, or we could have CPS pick him up. I'm like, for me, and I was going to work. I was driving to get to work. They cared nothing about that. But that 30 days, me being in jail, when I say, and I was in jail for just 30 days. But that was what again. I can only imagine somebody being there for years at a time. I lost my job. I was behind on my rent when I got out because I didn't work for 30 days. So thank God I had family who was able to pick up the pieces and stuff. But that's really real, like you said. If you spend just a day in jail or whatever, if you're not used to any of those things and you go through that process and stuff, that's traumatizing.
Mhm.
I'm very personal with myself, right? They're like, oh, just go pee in front of everybody else, in front of everybody, and they don't care nothing about that, right? But again, so when you get out, and even I had one of my other friends, he went to jail for a while. He got out. His mom was still stuck in like 1999, literally. And so the mental health thing, that is a real thing. But I kind of feel like too, Charles. What would you say? We talked about last week too, because they are when you got returning citizens who are fighting so much just to sustain their regular life. How do we then ask them, hey, get out here in these streets and still make sure you still fighting for justice too? Well, I can't even pay my rent, right?
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a good question, but it's our duty.
Yes.
It's our
Yes.
duty as a human being to make sure that our rights and other people's rights that we love are upheld.
That's right.
So it's like regardless, it's like you're tired, I'm tired. You gotta pay bills, I gotta pay bills.
Do it together.
We all have to do this, but things are gonna
Right.
stay the same if we don't do anything about it. And to your point, like law and people who enforce the law do not care about us.
They don't.
They don't. So the law is like it doesn't care. It's like this is something that is put in place by people who want to take advantage of situations. Doesn't care about us. The people who enforce it don't care about us. So it's and it makes me think about Angela Davis's book. What is it? Our prisons obsolete. So in that case, if you really cared about the community, it's like, okay, this is someone trying to get to work. They're not trying to go and buy drugs or rob a bank or go and assault someone. They are on their way to work. Maybe there's some services that they need that can help them to not do that again.
Right.
So
Right.
and if we can't handle that, because most people, I would say, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say about 50% of people who go to prison has something. It's like they have some type of like substance use issue, and I'm pretty sure that number may be a little higher. It's like it's either a substance use issue or something related to substance use. So if that's the case, that takes away half of the population if they are treated for mental health, because a substance use issue is a mental health issue. So
Mhm.
that takes away that. And then okay, let's say the other half of the people that the half a million people, there's 2 million people that are incarcerated. Let's say the other million, half of them are they went in for assault. That is a mental health issue. So if
Mhm.
we treat that, then you have even less people in prison.
Mhm.
And then you have some people that unfortunately don't need to be around other people because they just hurt people. Unfortunately, I mean, it's just you know,
Pedophiles.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. It's like some people they don't. I mean, I don't think that they should be treated harshly. I think they should be treated, but they don't need to be around other people.
Right.
Yes.
And they should be confined and monitored.
Right.
So I mean, we can solve a lot of this prison issue if we treat the mental health behind the issue.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Yes. And we know that people who have mental health issues and who are in prison do not get the services that they need.
Right. And Charles, I'm
That's
gonna say this too. Even the ones who are in prison for not mental health, right? I think what I'm hearing you say too is a lack of resources. Because a lot of times people go to prison because they have a lack of resources. I was driving because I couldn't afford to get my license. You know what I'm saying? But like, had there been a program out there, and then once that happened, right? So then y'all locked me up. I get out, but now I got a fine of like $500 to pay. I gotta still get my license back, right? And I don't have no job. So now what am I supposed to do now, right? I'm about to get them keys again and get that car again. I'm gonna go to work all over again, right? Because again, the resources for me to try to do something differently is not there. Now, what happened for me, again, like you said earlier, you got to have maybe like family who can maybe help you out. I was fortunate for that, but a lot of times people in prison don't have that. Their family, it's like, hey, you're in there, whatever. They forget about certain people who are there in prison. But I think, like you were just saying too, if the resources, like Roxanne said earlier, I think they say they want to rehabilitate people that are in prison. But how are you doing rehabilitation but not giving any kind of resources?
Mhm. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
catch-22
it is.
to keep
It
you systemically in in the system. But once you
Right.
get in, it's hard to get out. Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think
Very
we,
difficult.
and it's important to understand this is so after the internet was brought into play, we started to understand how this is an international issue. So just like some of the issues that we're dealing with are international, and I think we can kind of look to what other people in other countries are doing to help with getting things, getting our house in order here.
Yeah, yeah. Like yeah, I was looking at that one report or some research that was done about the carceral system in Norway, and how they have it set up where you can have visits with your and your family can actually live on in the facility where you're being housed. Other
Wow.
other other correctional facilities may have things like to make it more humane, where inmates are can adopt pets, for example, so that
Mm-hmm.
helps with your mental to be able to
Mm-hmm.
take care of
Mm-hmm.
something, right,
Mm-hmm.
while you're behind the bar. So there are some movements, but certainly not
Way
to
more can
the
be done.
yeah, way
Yeah.
more. And
Yes.
even when we talk about the bail system, right? Because you haven't even been, it's expensive to be poor in the United States of America, right? So you haven't even
It
been
is.
convicted. That's real talk. You haven't been convicted of nothing, but you can't afford the bail, so you get to sit and wait for your trial. In the
Yep.
meantime, you can become unhoused, unemployed, family to move to a whole nother state, all kinds of things, and you haven't even been before a judge to have your day, quote unquote, day in court. So those things are real.
And
Yes,
then
You know,
Roxanne, what about the ones who get before the judge and have it day in court, and either the case gets dismissed or something like that, but you done spent all that time just sitting there, and
mhm.
you lost all those things, and again, they don't give a damn about what you lost. So they don't
nope,
say, well, okay, well, you out now or not? But now I don't got no house to go to. I have no car to drive. I don't have no place to go to work at or whatever. It's like a
no,
domino effect, like over and over again.
yeah, that is correct. That is
And I'm gonna
correct.
say one other thing too. I was thinking about this too. Even a time correctional facility. What are y'all correcting?
Ain't no
How
correction.
are you correcting the thing when you don't have no resources? What
Yeah.
are you correcting? It's
That's a
punishment.
throwback. That's
Mm.
the throwback to the colonization,
Yeah.
not only of this country but other countries. But we're gonna
That's
talk about
right.
this one because it's the one we live in. The colonization has one of its key components is the idea punitive, right? Either
Mm-hmm.
to scare you by punishing you, or
Mm-hmm.
to actually punish you.
Mm-hmm.
Violence, violence, violence.
It's all they know.
Is all they know. Well, we're saying in the 21st century, we need to kick these last vestiges of this colonization out, and rethink and reimagine, because we can do that. Reimagine how we can help our fellow citizens without all of these punitive effects.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
That
So
sound
they,
about
they,
right.
they don't mind using them for work, right? They'll use them for work all day long.
Oh
So
my
it's like,
God.
how can you use me for labor and stuff? That's borderline like slavery.
Yeah,
Not
it
even
is. It
That's
is.
like
slavery.
Yep.
slavery. It is. It's absolutely. And it
Mhm.
needs to be abolished. It
Yeah.
Mhm.
absolutely needs to be abolished.
Yeah.
And so, we're talking about these things, but it's important to have these discussions, like you were saying, Charles, to keep talking about it, keep bringing it up in conversations with our family, with our friends, and our different communities and our different organizations that we're part of, to talk about these things. Because if we don't talk about them, then it's like they don't exist, and we don't
Right.
think about them, and then we don't act upon them,
That's right.
right? Become we become like frogs in a cauldron being boiled 1 degree
Mm,
at a time.
Wait for it to get hot, right?
mm, mm.
And I'm gonna say this too to our people watching this podcast tonight, because you guys, y'all, a lot of times we talk about families who've been affected by the police, but keep in mind it goes beyond what the one-on-one police action, because after you are involved into the system, you're trying to fight for some kind of accountability and justice. We're all going through the exact same system, and the communities are the ones who are allowing this system, us included, because we are a part of the community, right? Well, I'm gonna say I can't say us included, because again, we trying to fight back on this, but the communities who are laying back saying, well, that's not me, that's not my problem, you are part of the problem, because you're keeping letting this thing keep going on and not saying nothing about it. So somebody has to say, okay, hey, granted, you might not have somebody that's in jail, but if you know what's going on around the jails or whatnot, you should be doing something about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yes.
Mm,
So another systemic issue, right? Another systemic issue. I'd like to end us up with a quote. When you said, we got to fight, right?
Hmm.
It brought to mind the quote that Asada Shakur put in her autobiography, and it says, "It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
Yes, I
mm,
It
do
is
to
our
win.
duty. It's our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. That's
That's
community.
right.
We have nothing
Nothing to
to lose
lose but our
but
chains.
our chains.
mm,
We
That's
mm.
have
right.
nothing to lose but our
But our
chains.
chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Mm.
This has been Life After the Impact. We are about that action. We are about talking about things that are important to our community, to change the systemic trajectory of what this
Right.
community has been, what this community called the United States of America has been about. We can we can fight, and we
We
can
will
win.
fight. That's it. Like saying, hold on, before you end it though, you guys, if you enjoyed this conversation tonight,
Yes.
be sure to continue tuning in next Tuesday as well. We're gonna have another special guest up there. But also, if you guys enjoy this conversation as well as many others, please, please, please feel free to look at our page and make a donation.
Like,
Right?
subscribe,
Like, subscribe,
share,
and share.
donate,
Exactly.
right? Yeah,
And donate.
and donate. This has been Life After Impact. Have a peaceful and enjoyable rest of your day. Peace.
Peace.